Why the Apostle Paul is a scoundrel? Part 2. If you think that slavery was just the ways of the Old Testament, I have bad news for you. In Titus 2 9 through 10, he writes, teach slaves to be subject to their masters in everything and to try to please them, not to talk back to them, not to steal from them, but to show them they can be fully trusted, so that in every way they will make the teaching about God, our Savior, attractive. Slavery is unequivocally and reprehensible and morally indefensible. It represents a gross violation of basic human rights and dignity, perpetuating a system of exploitation and dehumanization. The practice entails the forced subjugation of individuals, stripping them of their autonomy, freedom, and agency. Slavery fosters a culture of inequality, justice, and cruelty, denying people the right to live their lives with dignity and pursue their aspirations. So before you, yes, you, call in and say, who are you to decide what's moral? I can assure you, I am more moral than your God or his spokesman. And you can trust me because I have a mustache. Do you disagree? Give us a call because the show is about to begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Heathen. I am your host today, Objectively Dan. Joining me, I think that was Sydney's dad at
It
first.
was.
I'm
Sorry.
not. Yeah, your dad did a great job of the intro. They said slavery represents justice instead of injustice at one point, which was
He should have said injustice. I'm so sorry.
that's okay. I messed up the opening intro so bad last time on Truth Wanted. I have no room to talk. But anyway, Sydney Davis Jr. is joining me today. Sydney, what's going on? What's happening?
Other than my dad ruining the cold open, no, not much is going on here. Same
We
old same.
we do need to, we should probably rehearse the cold open before we actually do it, because I don't know, we don't actually rehearse at all before me.
Well, I mean, that would that make it a cold open, right? Like
You're right though. It wouldn't make it as cold. It'd be
right.
a hot. It'd be more of a hot open, and we
That
want it
was
to be a
ice
cold
cold.
open.
Right. That was ice cold. Ice cold.
You're right. You're right, folks. Today is February the 11th, 2024. And this is Talk Heathen. This is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And what you should know is that Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines right now. So get your calls in at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. City, I've been sick a little bit this week, but I'm good now. I took some stuff before we're doing it today, but I didn't get to do Truth Want this week. I didn't do some of my other stuff. But yesterday I was going to go to there is a witch market in Austin, and over 200 vendors were going to be at this thing.
Selling witches or
not selling.
I'm just witches.
Witches selling, I guess, potions, eyes of newts, and probably like over expensive soaps is what I imagine a lot of the product is. I actually don't know what they sell at a witch's market, but I wanted to check it out. But it got canceled due to inclement weather.
What kind of inclement weather did you guys have?
It was a little stormy yesterday. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it does make me wonder, and I'm not a witch, I'm not in the community, but isn't there like a spell for that? Like, can't you stop? Right. Or is that more druid territory?
But I mean, I don't mean to speak for witches, but I believe witches also have days where they're like, I just not today. You know what I mean? Like, even witches are like, oh,
the vibe was off.
The vibe is off. And it's like, you could cancel the storm, or you could be like, you know what? We can do this another time. I'm just a little witch vended out. Because I mean, I imagine that's a lot of like, I don't know, gluten-free scones and stuff to make. And maybe they just wanted to do it at a different time. I don't know.
First of all, everyone can enjoy a gluten-free scone. And I'm not trying to hate. We were just reading a great article about intersectional feminism within the witch communities and stuff, and that's great. A lot of them are like super activist stuff. I'm interested in the intersection between witchcraft and capitalism. I just don't know, because I see this stuff on TikTok where it's like leave this flour mixture out under the full moon to charge. Like, I saw that one time, and I'm just like, what does this even mean? What is happening here?
I mean, but did you try it?
Well, no, but like,
if you tried it, you may have learned.
I guess you're right. There's just, I have a lot of questions. That's
me
all.
too.
But
questions are good though.
I'm not a part. Can you tell the story that you were telling me, which is that you hung out at you were with a witch's coven? for a
Oh,
minute?
yes. I did not. Yes. Okay. So I lived in Chicago before I lived here in Nashville. I mean, in Austin. I definitely live in Austin. I'm not in Nashville. Um, and at like 6 months after living in this building and just seeing weird stuff all the time, like I could go into great detail about weird stuff that I saw. I finally asked my neighbor, who at the time was quite a stranger to me. We were not close, but I had to ask somebody. I said, I've been seeing some weird stuff and I got to know if this is normal. And that's when I found out that every couple who lived in that building were witches. They were all witches, every single one of them. Every single one of them had altars and the things they showed me, but I don't want to incorrectly label the items, but they definitely were active witches, and they told me I did not need to be afraid because they had done the witch version of blessing the building and only positive vibes. So I still moved. Don't get me wrong, I still moved,
Yeah.
but I'm friends with some of those people still. Great people. But I definitely still got out of there. So
That kind of makes you wonder. So, like, if a Catholic priest blesses a building and then a witch blesses it, does it counteract each other in some way, or are they non-interactable? Does the vibe change? I don't know. Again, just I have a lot of questions. I'm thinking very scientifically about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how the witch community sees everything they do.
Witches, if you're watching this, let us know in the
Let us know.
comments. Write in. If you think you know the answer, we'd love to hear from you because that is a great question.
I think it is mostly people who participate in. My understanding is it's participating in the ceremony for vibes. It is just like I'm with a bunch of people who feel the same way I do about it.
For vibes only. Yes.
And it's for vibes. No, I mean that in a very like real way. Like I think it's just like I think that's just how I think it's a community activity rather than anything.
I mean, like I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
there's like documentation of the Salem witch trial happening because the vibes were off. Like I'm 100% sure there's a document out there that says that.
Yeah, that's definitely what they wrote down.
Yeah.
They said, hear ye, the vibes are off.
Yeah.
Hitherto,
and we saw what happened. It was awful.
We gotta kill all the witches. It's very sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. I don't know if they ever fixed the vibes, but I hope they did.
I would hope the vibes have been fixed since however long ago that was.
Yeah.
A few hundred years now. But maybe not actually. So this is a call-in show, and right now we do have some open lines. So please, I encourage everybody come call in. It's been a minute since I've been on. Sydney, new host. It's this time number 2 for you.
Yeah.
So happy to be hosting with you. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what kind of calls that we can take together for Talk Heathen's sake. But this is also we're competing in our efforts with another perhaps how should we put this game at which a lot of people think is amazing, that is also a bowl game.
It is very busy. It is there are lots of people checking it out.
Yeah. Synonymous with amazing is also a bowl game is I think a good way to put it. So maybe some people are watching that instead of us. But yeah, we want to talk to you guys, hear what's going on.
If there are any of those today, they don't start for a while. I think several hours.
So oh yeah, that's excuses. True. You're right. I don't think it actually has started yet. This is how out of the loop I am on All Matter Sports. Yeah. I really don't.
Yeah,
I don't follow.
If there is a big sports event happening, it would happen in the evening around, I believe, 7 p.m. Central.
But maybe there's pre-gaming efforts.
That's true.
Maybe a different kind of pregame than what I'm thinking of. But hey, Sydney, this is a show where we have a segment every week called Talk Heathen To Me. So maybe we should talk about that. Talk Heathen To Me is where we ask you guys a question and you give us an answer. And we pick specifically 3 of them, which we think are the best. And we read those out to you. So last week we asked you, what would Jesus do? Which is a great one. It's an open essay prompt that you would see in like school before a big test or something. So I really like this one. What would Jesus do? Let's read our top 3 answers. Number 3 comes from the Nihon Jin, who says WWJD, his handholds, which is maybe one of the most disgusting things I've ever had to read on this show. But it does give me pause. So it did make the list this week.
And he's not like, I want to say that would be wrong, but I don't think so.
I think it's definitely wrong, Sydney.
It's wrong, but like factually, I don't know.
I'm not even gonna parse that. I'm just
No,
gonna
yeah.
move on.
Yeah, probably.
And get to with our next answer here. Number 2 comes from I think it's Leith Crowther 6086, who says, "What would Jesus do? Probably a sheep." Which, come on, guys, come on. That's
I
a
don't
little.
know. I mean, like, I
Mhm.
don't know.
You don't know?
I feel like he hung out with enough people all the time
You're
around
right.
him
Jesus
that
was a sociable dude. He had
well,
at least 12 dudes
and at least
for
like one lady.
a segment of
So,
his adult life. Now,
right.
before that, though, who knows? You know, I
That's true.
mean,
I mean,
I wasn't there.
I was not.
Just saying, it could be a thing. Number 1 comes from X1001704, who says, Jesus would help me remember the password to my Pornhub account, which,
He seems like a nice guy. He seems like a helpful guy who would have done something like that.
that is really funny. It's like, if Jesus, if you hung around, if Jesus was around today and he hung around you and he knew the password, would he give it to you if you really needed the help? Because think about this theologically. Okay, does this intercede on free will on some way? If Jesus is holding the password for you to sin, would he still give it to you?
Yes, because he'd want to see what decision you made.
Because it's a free will thing, right?
Right. Because he'd want to see, would you use it or would you
Right.
not? With that power, would you use that power or would you contain yourself?
Exactly. So,
I think you would.
but also, is giving away account information that's not yours a sin? He might be committing a sin
And I
because it's
think that's
not
loving
Jesus'
thy
account.
neighbor. I think that's loving thy neighbor.
It is loving thy neighbor, but also it's violating property rights, which Jesus is a huge fan of, I think.
But I feel like he's more into sharing is caring.
Even if it comes to Pornhub account passwords.
Yeah.
I think it explicitly breaks the terms and agreements of Pornhub.com.
Oh, well, see, if it breaks terms and agreements that you agree to, then I don't think Jesus would do it.
Yeah, Jesus upholds contract law.
Yeah, he does.
Very much so.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So then I don't think he would do it. I think he'd be like, nah, man, sorry.
See, that gets a little deeper than you got to give it credit for. Thanks for the answers this week, guys. You disgusting people with your disgusting answers. All 3 of those very dirty, but still appreciate it that you guys give those answers. The prompt for this week is going to be, why are people really leaving the church? And that's really with capital letters, really, in the script here. So enter your best answer below in the video. And we will we'll get it in the comments below the video. I mean, and we'll answer the top 3 answers for next week. But before we move on here, Cindy, why are people really leaving the church?
I think a combination of things. I think many people leave church to go scream at a barista immediately after talking about how you should treat people with kindness and respect. I think they leave church and then they're like, what do you mean you've discontinued the unicorn frap? Don't make me tell you again.
Right.
And then I think other people are leaving church because they're like, too early. Sunday's my one day to sleep in. Can't make it. Streaming services exist, right? I can catch TD Jakes at home in my living room. And then I think a lot of people are leaving the church because the whole, it doesn't make a lot of sense and they don't believe what it says and it fosters poor relationships with people that we should care about. But it's probably the barista thing, honestly, statistically.
I think statistically you're right. It's probably the barista thing. But on a more serious note, I do think there is a lot of people who leave the church but still have some sort of semblance of Christianity. I actually think that's more common than us, which is like not adhering to Christianity at all. I think that there are lots of people who leave the church but still identify as Christian or identify as having a God belief. Then there are people who say the whole thing is wrong.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I talk to a lot of people who still follow the teachings of Jesus from the Bible, but they don't want to consider themselves Christians and they don't want to go to Christian churches because of the messages they don't agree with and the things that they don't agree with. And so they would rather just say they're a Christ follower. They say they follow Jesus teachings, but they don't want to use the word Christian or evangelical or anything like that because they don't identify in that way.
There. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think if deconstruction podcasts have taught me one thing, is that there is a significant portion of the population that does feel disaffected by religious organizations at large that still have a sort of spiritual identity that they wish to assuage, either
Right.
because one, when you grow up in a church, right, like that's a meaningful community space
Yeah.
that you're a part of,
Mhm.
that we just don't have the luxury of having as non-theists most of the time. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
organizations like Atheist Community of Austin, but like those are not common, like at all.
Right.
So
Right. And they're usually online, not really in person quite often.
yeah, and we don't have like liturgy. Like
Yeah.
liturgy is a huge part of the religious organization structure, particularly if you're like from a Catholic denomination, for example. That is very meaningful for a lot of folks too. So some people want to have that spiritual practice in a group setting. So for some people, like literally church becomes like their weekly podcast that they listen to. And like I don't know. That's how it kind of was for me for a bit. I definitely was in sort of a deconstruction zone where I was kind of halfway in, halfway out, and didn't know where to put myself before I
Right.
put everything away.
Right.
So
And a lot of people don't understand that deconstruction doesn't always mean going from religious to entirely non-religious. It just means changing your belief system or
mm,
deconstructing from your original belief system. So you can
right.
deconstruct and still believe that there's a God or believe in the teachings of Jesus and have deconstructed from your prior belief system.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of stuff to think about there. So give us your answers. Why are people really leaving the church? Serious or not serious? Be honest. We do tend to go towards the not serious. So, with that bias in mind, please leave a comment below and let us know. But real serious answers too, just for discussion's sake, I think is really good. And before we get going here on our first call, we want to go to our crew cam real quick just to show you that there are real human beings that work on this show besides the two people you see on screen right now. So let's go to that crew cam and see all the folks who are helping out today. Thank you guys so much for doing all the work. And we even got people in the Free Thought Library right now in Austin, Texas, which is great. We've been doing so many shows not in the library now. It's always weird to see it, you know? Man, 2020 really just changed everything, huh? Just
Oh my gosh, it really did.
yeah. But hey, you know what? It also means we get to have hosts from all over the world now as regular hosts, which
That's
is
true.
pretty cool.
That is cool.
But I do miss seeing people in person in Austin.
Like
Anyway,
me, like how I am local and I live in Austin. I
oh,
do
totally.
definitely don't live anywhere
Super.
else.
You're so local to Austin. I
Super
think
local.
if you drew like a new equator and
Mm.
prime meridian to Austin, I think you're right in the
Yeah.
center.
Like if I move at all, they'll see me in your square. That's how local I
Mm,
am.
yeah. Yeah, you can base your directions based on where Sydney is
Yeah.
in the city.
Yeah. You can
And
see
that can get
Austin
you.
behind me.
Yeah, that's definitely Austin behind
Yeah,
you,
for sure.
100%. Let's get to our calls, shall we? We got a couple different people who want to talk to us. So first, oh man, we have some good ones here. Oh my goodness, we have some good ones. Folks, please stay on the line so that we can talk to everyone. First, let's talk to Jack, who wants to talk to us from Florida, who seems to have an issue with our Talk Heathen To Me segment, saying that we're being disrespectful. Jack, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hi, guys. Yeah, the chat told me to call in because I found the jokes about Jesus disrespectful. I'm an atheist. I just don't feel like it's a good look for you guys to imply that, Jesus committed bestiality. I understand not agreeing with the religion, but when it rises to disrespect, I think it's going to turn off people that might be interested in atheism or on the fence as far as atheists are concerned when you hear you guys talk like that.
Yes.
I
I think
I
that's
I think it's fair.
that's valid. I
Yeah.
think so. The thing is, for some people, making jokes like that is a relief, right? It's a way of saying, hey, it's okay to talk about this thing that we haven't been able to talk about or haven't been able to make fun of our entire lives, and sort of to give people the confidence in speaking up against something that they haven't previously had the power to do. The downside of it is, you're right, it can be tacky, right? It can not be seen in good taste. And people think that we're not being serious or that we don't have serious conversations about the subjects. The
Yeah.
thing is, we can all contain multitudes, right? There are some days where I'm going to be really academic about everything that I'm talking about on here, and sometimes I'm just down for a really good joke. And I would rather not limit myself based on outside perspectives on what other people think I should be, rather than just be the person that I am, which is both. At least that's my answer to it. I don't know what you think, Sydney.
Yeah, I think that is a completely fair and completely valid observation to make, and I think that you're correct. I think that some people would hear an introduction like that and be like, this isn't the kind of show that I want to call into. I also think that some people, the way that they process the trauma that they've been through and things that they've experienced is through humor, and so sometimes at the risk of processing those things, you can't make everyone happy. As with any type of humor, any type of communication, there will always be someone who's offended. And I think people are just as offended by that as sometimes they are by the things we talk about on the calls, by the topics we cover. So I think you're completely and totally correct in your statement. And I do appreciate that you call in and you let us know your thoughts on that. And I think that some episodes are for certain people and some episodes aren't for those particular people. And I just hope that each episode offers something a little bit different for different types of people and what they're looking for. But I do appreciate your perspective on that. I think you're correct.
Yeah. So there you go, Jack. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I mean, I still think it's a bit disrespectful. I think you're going to lose people that way. I think you've acknowledged that you're going to lose people, and that not every episode is for everybody. It seems like you're okay with it. I understand that people use jokes to process the trauma that religion can cause. I understand all that, but I wonder if really making jokes on a show like this, rather than just in your personal everyday conversations, I wonder if that's really the wisest choice. But that's pretty much all I got to say.
Yeah. And I think that's a great question. And I would love to hear in the comments what people think in terms of do they agree? Do they disagree? Which side do they see the point of? I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I think so too. What also I want to point out, those are jokes that were made by the comment section.
Yeah, we did not make those jokes.
We didn't originally make those jokes. We did add on to it though. We are presenting.
I understand that. I understand that, but y'all asked for the submissions and
we did,
platformed them.
and we picked those, and that's totally fair. But
totally fair.
In the same sense, right? Provocation is also a method of getting people to call in and getting people to have some of those deeper conversations with us. So like there's two sides to the coin. If we were all completely academic all the time, there's a lot of people that wouldn't even bother to watch this. A lot of people have first found ACA content because they saw a title that they thought maybe was ridiculous, and then that gets it into it, right? So it's just it is kind of capitalism in action there. It is sort of like appealing to certain demographics and market, and that aspect of it is always a kind of not the best, right? I hate participating in helping in making the YouTube algorithm work the way it does as much as anybody else does that like makes content on this platform. But I don't know. It's just a part of it sometimes, but yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just, I wonder if the kind of content is actually going to attract like the type of Christians that would be more inflamed by it and turn off the more academic ones that might give you good calls.
Yeah,
you got what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question.
That's fair, and it's not something I haven't thought of myself. Our content is made, particular openings is made by a large group of people. It's not just us as hosts. It's a lot of people that approve and make these messages go out. So yeah, we hear your feedback. We appreciate that, Jack.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that, and comments too. Let us know what you think about that kind of stuff, and maybe our producers could take a look at that and see. Oh, maybe there's different ways we can go about it. So thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Anything else you want to add before we let you go? Oh, I think he's gone now. All right. Well, thank you, Jack. No, it's fair. And I don't always like reading the openings that we have either. Sometimes I think our stuff is kind of crass. I really do.
And I completely understand. I completely understand what he's saying. And I think that is a valid point to make. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we take these calls, is to get people's thoughts and opinions, to hear what they have to say, to weigh in the comments. And there's no better way to open a discussion than have people call in who have constructive feedback and critique like that. So I appreciate that he called in and left that feedback. And if people comment below like, yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but this is always the part that I hate the most, or something like that, it's something we can learn from.
That is something we can learn from.
Yeah.
I always at least feel better at the end of the day if the substance of our conversation
Right.
always ends up being good.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of have to do we have to play the YouTube game. We have to do the bullshit shock jock kind of stuff sometimes, which is
Yeah.
like, it's not great. It's not a great feeling. But also we want the show to be successful, and we want it to like we want to have people watching it, right? If it doesn't grow, then it's not hitting more people, right?
If you want us to stop doing the shock jock humor at the beginning, please subscribe to the Patreon. Please send us, please speak with your dollars.
Sydney. Damn. She's like, hey, if you want this to stop, pay us, and then we'll stop. Wow. All right.
I mean, but we would.
we do listen to the folks who do pay for the show, because obviously they're the ones who are very invested in it. So yeah, that is a method of letting us know. But that being said, we should go ahead and move on to some other callers who want to talk to us about other stuff. I think that was a fairly what's that?
Oh, I said let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Before we get to this next call, I should mention, as well as the page run, we also have an option to become a channel member on the show. So you can click that join button below if you want to. You get custom chat emotes, early access to clips and shorts, and you will be helping perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen in the atheist community of Austin. And we're serious about this, by the way. We want to make content that everybody enjoys. If everybody's not enjoying it, and we want to listen to that feedback and make the appropriate changes. So thank you for everybody who is a member and everybody who does support the show that way. Another way to support the show is, of course, through super chats. You can leave a question or comment through that. We try to get to as many as we can. We don't have any in the moment, but as soon as we do, we will read some of those out. And last, before I move on, liking the video and subscribing is also a way that you can support through non-monetary means, enabling those notifications too. But of course, we're always going to be live at the same time every Sunday for the foreseeable future. So hopefully, when that comes out. But anyway, let's take another caller here. This is an interesting premise here. We have Howard, who's calling from New York here. Howard says, or wants to know why some atheists are against the death penalty while we accept evolution. And is that a contradiction? Howard, you're live on Talk Heathen. Is that a fair summation of your question?
Yes. Hi, Dan. Hi, Sydney. That's my main question. But very quickly, I wondered if either one of you have an answer to a biology question I have. Let me give you the rundown. My grandmother had my mother. My mother had my sister. My sister had a daughter. Is my grandmother's eggs in my sister's daughter? How many lines of an egg would there be from a grandmother to a granddaughter? Do you understand my question?
How many lines of an egg?
How many lines of DNA or? Pardon?
So are you asking if any of the eggs in your sister would be eggs from your grandmother, or like what percentage?
Yes, or any part of my grandmother's eggs, DNA, or whatever would carry on through generations.
I mean, we can never be specifically. So first of all, there are chimera eggs, right? There are eggs that actually don't even take parts of DNA from like one parent and stuff. And so like the answer is that really depends. Like it depends on people's individual situations. I don't know if biologists can ever say for sure, yeah, you're exactly this percentage of your parents and this percentage of your other parent. I don't know if it really works like that. Also, like DNA does change and stuff over time, right? So like the DNA that you have in your body right now is different from what you may have like 7 years ago. So it's hard to say like what is going to be from your parents and what's going to be from your own. Yeah.
Well, and women are born, if I remember correctly, women are born with the number of eggs they're going to have their entire life. It's not like sperm where they can regenerate. So eggs are brand new. The eggs that a woman has in her body are just her eggs. But in terms of like familial DNA, if you're just splitting it kind of standard wise, like there's no steps or halves or anything in there, I imagine it would be like their DNA would share, I don't know, what is that, like an eighth, a 16th, something like that. But in
Well,
terms of eggs, that I think the eggs are just brand new. They're just her own.
yeah, it's
So
I think
inside
there's
my grandmother's egg,
go ahead, Howard. Go ahead.
inside my grandmother's egg was my mother's egg, and inside my mother's egg was her daughter's egg inside her egg. And does it go?
If you mean the egg that
I'm not
eventually
sure
became
if
your
I'm-
mother and the egg that eventually became your sister, then yes.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, if that's the case, yeah.
So the egg contains the next generation.
Yeah,
in part, yes. That's
yeah,
how that works.
partially. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that was the connection I was trying to make. Okay, to my question about the death penalty. Most atheists feel that this is it. This is our life now is all we have, and it's precious. Correct? Would you agree most atheists feel that way?
It's hard to say. Atheists are a blend of a lot of different people. We don't subscribe to one particular ideology, but at least, folks, I would say I'm comfortable saying most of the atheists of the atheist community of Austin feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone believes this life is all we have, that would make it even more precious, right? That our consciousness ends at death, and that's it. So why would people who've evolved from animals, if you believe in evolution, we are an animal, correct?
Yes.
So why
Yes, we're
would
an
an animal not eliminate another animal that is taking that precious life away from someone? You know what I mean?
You mean
Yes.
like murderers?
Yeah, anyone who would commit acts against someone else. In a lot of animal societies, they eliminate that person or that animal.
Mhm.
But humans won't do that. A lot of them don't believe that killing someone who eliminates the preciousness of someone's life, it just doesn't connect with me why an atheist all say that they don't believe in the death penalty.
So, Dan, do you mind if I?
Yeah.
answer this?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So I think something that something that separates human beings from animals. You know, we're all mammals, but I think something that separates human beings from animals is the idea to have thoughts and feelings and to understand nuance and to understand that not everything is black and white, and we can also predict the thoughts and feelings of other human beings, whereas say monkeys or leopards or cats, they can't necessarily process what they think the thoughts of the other cat would be or what the other lion would be. I can look at Dan and I can say, he would probably be upset about this. He would probably be hurt about this. He would probably enjoy this thing. And that is something that is unique to human beings that animals can't do. And so when animals see one of them kill another one and then they kill the one that's killing everybody, what they're saying is, this animal is defective. It's eliminating members of our population. We're just going to get rid of it because it doesn't work for us. That's just a natural inclination. Human beings can say, sometimes people kill because they just want to kill. Sometimes people kill because they have brain damage. Sometimes people kill because of the environment in which they were raised. They have mental illness. There is such a wide variety of nuance when it comes to why people harm other human beings that humans look at it and say, we need to get to the bottom of what it was that caused this person to be this way. We need to get to the bottom of what it is that we can fix or what it is that we can study in order to change this. And the answer isn't always kill that human being. If we kill other human beings, that doesn't necessarily make us any better than the original murder that we are getting justice over, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, I would also say, first of all, there are atheists that think that the death penalty is fine. But to be an atheist doesn't require any ideological commitments. I think you're correct though in saying that if you were to survey the atheists in the United States, I think most of them would say that they don't agree with the death penalty. And I think that mostly stems from the idea of punitive justice versus rehabilitative justice. And there is a pretty broad consensus amongst atheists, at least in our community, that I believe in this idea of rehabilitative justice, that justice isn't meant to be sort of a punishing affair, but rather justice should instead be something that helps grow and change the people that are a part of the system. That if they aren't changing people and if they aren't doing things, then the system isn't working as it should be. Now, of course, not everybody feels that way, and there are folks that currently exist that we can't change. Right? We either lack the medical technology or it's just a matter of will. I mean, it's just how it is. And there are some of us that are okay with that we still support those people anyway, even if they're living in a prison population, because people feel that's the right thing to do. We don't always make our choices based off of pure economics, right? Of, oh, well, this person is a dredge on our society, so we need to cut them off, right? Like, that's just not how we always make decisions. And some would argue it's not the most humane way to make decisions either. You're going to get a variety of answers on this, but for me, it is because of this idea of rehabilitative justice, that causing someone to die for their actions doesn't make us necessarily the better for doing that, even if that person is a murderer, even if they are guilty of crimes that are heinous and should be rectified in some way. You know, it's not that we don't think that justice shouldn't occur. It's just we don't think that the death penalty is the most just action in that scenario. So,
and killing somebody doesn't solve the problem. It solves our need for justice and bloodlust. If we're killing somebody for killing somebody, we're just doing it because we feel upset about what they did. And the only way that we're going to stop feeling these difficult feelings are if we kill that person and we feel vindicated. But it doesn't actually do anything in terms of fixing the problem, changing the system, making any kind of positive change or development in any way. All it does is feed our need for, I feel better now because that person is gone. And that doesn't help anyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So there you go. I think we gave some pretty long answers there.
I understand what you're both saying.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Glad you do.
I just think that the more precious you consider your life, that this is it, this is all there is, and how precious it is, especially small children that are killed for no reason, no mental issue, just random murder of a child who's been robbed of the limited life we have here. If this is all there is, then someone needs to pay.
Yeah, listen, Howard, we're not saying that we don't. Listen, Howard, we don't say that no justice should happen to murderers.
Right.
We're just saying we shouldn't kill them. Because for exactly your point, life is precious. So taking away that murderer's life, we also believe is a kind of wrong in some way. At least those of us who believe in a rehabilitative justice system. That doesn't mean they shouldn't suffer consequences for their actions. We just don't think those consequences should involve the death penalty.
They should not be in the population with anyone else. And I might argue that I don't think there are many cases in which especially children are harmed for, quote, no good reason at all. I think if we study these people and we pay a lot of attention and we ask them questions and we deep dive into their background, there will be, even if unjustified, there will be a particular reason or thing or trauma or something that made that person do that action, even if it's just drugs, even if they were just out of their mind. And so we can't study these things and we can't fix these things if the only way we operate is eye for an eye. But again, not advocating for the rescue of people who murder children or anything like that. I don't think they belong in the population. I don't believe they should have the right to vote or anything like that. But I would argue that I would be hard pressed to find a scenario in which somebody was murdered by somebody who was completely normal and sane and had absolutely nothing wrong with them and just chose to murder one day for no reason, even if they don't recognize that something is wrong with them when they do it.
Okay, I appreciate both of your comments and your opinions. Thanks for
Howard,
taking my call.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Bye now.
Yeah, appreciate the call there and appreciate the conversation thereof. And you're gonna find like I already see some differences between my view and Sydney's view right there. There's nuances there, and
Yeah.
we're not a unified political body.
Right.
Much to the dismay of many of us, we don't always think the same way about it because we don't have Christianity proclaims to have a unified moral system. That is, you should be able to make all Christians should be able to make the same decisions if they follow the guidelines presented from the system. Obviously, that doesn't work in practice,
Right.
but this is what Christianity says should work in practice. It doesn't work because Christians have a wide variety of death penalty sort of opinions, right? And
Right.
atheists, obviously, maybe even wider opinion because we're not having to cite biblical sources or historical examples, right? We can draw from even a wider sort of variety of sources in which to make our decisions on why we think something is right or wrong. So
Right.
it becomes immensely more complicated. And you're going to see some differences there. But by and large,
Right.
yeah, I think, especially in America, most of us don't support death penalty.
Right. And like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I absolutely have days where I hear something on the news and I'm like, get rid of that guy. Like,
Yeah,
get him
yeah,
out of
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But you also recognize sometimes, or at least in my opinion, you recognize sometimes that there will always be an innocent person who gets put to death if we allow death penalties to
That is
exist.
true as well.
And so
Yeah.
even if it means keeping somebody alive that I think is garbage and deserves to be kicked headfirst into a fire pit, if that saves even one person from being innocently put to death because the ability to put them to death doesn't exist, I think that's worth it.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah.
I stand that. Sydney. Good opinions.
Good vibes.
Good job. Yes. We have some super chats that we need to read
Yeah.
out real quick. One we got from the lovely Kelly Laughlin, member of 2 years, gave $2, who covered me on Truth Wanted on Friday because I couldn't do it because I was sick. Thank you, Kelly. Who said, did Jesus die a virgin? Answer, no, he got nailed. Kelly.
Let the record show we did not write that joke.
Now we're oh my god. See, now everybody's trying to make us say the worst jokes possible after our discourse there, which is very funny. All right, Kelly, you get that one. Thanks for donating. Another one is a new member who gave 200 Czech korunas, which
Whoa.
I don't know how much that is in American
It sounds like
money.
a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but money can be very deceptive. But thank you, Quantum Answer, who's a new member to Talk Heathen, who said, I think if Christians can freely say about Jesus anything they want without evidence, we can say also whatever we want about Jesus without evidence. It's fair. By the way, jokes are fun. Preaching is not. That's an interesting perspective.
That is.
Yeah.
I like that.
People
I like that a
do
lot.
just kind of say shit. And it doesn't necessarily have to be true. I do like, yeah, obviously the bestiality, it's a little, maybe it's a little different.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and like I've always thought that if you're going to make yourself a public figure, you should be open to jokes about yourself and at your own expense. And like if
True.
anyone's a public figure, it's Jesus. You know what I mean? It's Jesus.
That's
like,
true.
Man is one of the most public figures. I think there was a study done once that said Jesus and Ronald McDonald were like the two most recognizable people to children in like kindergarten or younger.
I think you're thinking of, they talked about the cross and
Is that what it was?
and the McDonald's M.
Yeah, something like that. It's like a lot of people know Jesus. So I feel like Jesus can be the butt of some jokes.
Yeah, I think that study was talking about like recognizable symbols, and
Yeah.
I think it showed that the McDonald's M was more recognizable than the cross. I
was it
could
more
be
recognizable?
totally wrong on that.
Yeah.
Maybe Crew can back me up there and show me what that was about. But yeah,
I just like inventing statistics for my
yeah. Well,
benefit.
just for the sake of accuracy, if we're ever gonna cite certain things. But yeah, no, Jesus is definitely like a popular dude. You can't say he's not.
He's very popular.
Very popular for a guy who's been gone for a while. Very large staying power, that guy.
Well,
that and Walt Disney. I
but
think.
a lot of people don't think that he's been gone for a long time. So there's that.
Yeah, that's true. I think
true.
that's part of it. One more super chat here we have from Ben9 Lives, who gave $4.99 and says, "Great combo, Sydney and Dan. Quick question. Dan, are you still going to continue Truth Wanted?" Yes, I think I have hosted the last 2 episodes before the last one. Again, I was sick this last weekend. I get people are worried because I haven't been hosting as much. I've just had a lot going on in life. I to be honest, I was out for a minute and then I tried to get back on and then some other stuff come up. So just a reminder again, we say this all the time. I have a regular job. I do regular things outside of this. And I also have been trying to host another project that's alive on Thursday nights. That's outside of the ACA. And, you know, it's like a lot of stuff just takes up my time. And sometimes too, I'm just like, I just want to do other things.
If you want to see Dan more often, join our Patreon.
Yeah. No, I will. I will let you. You will know if I'm not on Truth One anymore or Talk Heathen. I will post about it somewhere or something.
The earth will quake.
The earth will quake.
You are no longer on Truth Wanted.
Yeah. I like it will. It will be that information will be publicly available. So you know, I have no like. I've no like agreement that says, oh, I can't say if I'm not on anymore or whatever. Like, yeah, I will, you know, I continue to enjoy hosting it. I've just had a lot of personal stuff happen come up recently. So, you know, it's meant that I haven't been able to host every time.
Yeah.
So
2024 has been a doozy. Let me tell you.
Yeah, by the way, folks, I finally got my car back last week from my accident that happened in October. So that tells you, and Austin Police Department has not done any work on figuring out the drunk driver that hit me and kind of changed my life. So that's cool. Thanks, APD. Really appreciate that. So just a little public announcement there. I'm glad my car was fixed, at least. That was I didn't expect that to happen. So but anyway, that's all the super chats we got right now, but we will continue to read them as they come up. Let's get to another caller here. We have we've got again a lot of good a lot of good ones on the line right now. I want to get to Brett though. Let's talk to Brett from Missouri. Brett says the New Testament is a good guide for morality. Brett, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hello. I hope you're all doing well. I actually run a YouTube thing and a podcast myself, and I thought you guys were interesting, so figured I'd call you up. I'm at Brett Keane on YouTube if you're curious.
Okay, Brett.
Yes.
So what do you think? Why do you think the New Testament is a good guide to morality? Let's start there.
Well, there's on its face surface by itself, it is actually a good guide. I've even heard many atheists state that the philosophy that Jesus taught was exceptional and one could actually live a pretty good life based upon it. But I've also compared the theology and the morality based upon other religions as well as atheism. And I've come to the conclusion that atheism is a subjective morality. It's basically whatever feels good, nihilistic. Nothing really has any meaning and value. It's only what's acceptable in society or whatever nature evolved us to be kind of concept. Well, as you know, nature isn't very kind. There's a lot of things such as pedophilia, killing, destruction in nature and society. We've got you guys were just talking about the death penalty, right? One of the big reasons why Christians argue over it is because our system is broken. It's messed up. So we don't know if we should go along with the system that says it's okay to kill people when they can't even get their cases right or people are treated fairly in the process. You get what I'm saying?
Yes. And also Jesus is a victim of the death penalty. So I would think that most Christians would be against it.
Right.
But, you know, obviously they don't all agree on that. So, yes. And Brett, before we continue, though, everything you've said so far is about atheism. I haven't heard anything about the New Testament. And also you've described atheist morality as nihilism. And I don't know if you've actually done, and I'm sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, but have you actually read the literature on secular philosophy? Because there are many philosophers that have...
I actually used to be a very, very popular social media former atheist until I came over to Christianity. I've only been doing Christianity and theism for about 5-6 years, but I spent the majority of my life doing the Aaron Raw, Matt Dillahunty, amazing anus kind of thing.
That's great.
Atheist, sorry about that.
I remember.
I appreciate that, but I'm asking about, because there's different forms of secular morality, right? Like if you look at Camus, if you look at Sartre, if you look at Nietzsche, I mean, all of these are just 20th century examples. Obviously, you got to fill out the majority. secular moral systems, right? But like there's more than one kind of secular morality. And is it subjective? Well, it's not based on a universal moral principle all the time. Yeah. But like, you know, to just come to the conclusion and say that it's all just nihilism, that's a red flag for me.
Right.
You understand?
Right. Well, wasn't Nietzsche a nihilist? He basically said, you know, even though he believed that God did not exist, he even stated God's dead. He said we have to have something to fill the void. In his writings, he said, if we don't have some kind of moral foundation, then there's going to be it's going to be a cataclysm. Society can't hold itself. That's why a lot of our leaders say that if you don't have God and those objective concepts to go along with, then it's how do you make laws like that? Who's going to make the laws if it's just our human subjective behavior, animalistic instincts and ideas?
Okay, so again, we're talking about something. If you're talking about what Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which he's talking about the deconstruction of Christianity as the main social and moral function of society, he does say that there has to be something that comes afterwards, right? He's using Zarathustra is sort of the prophet that he uses to sort of represent this. And he says there's this coming of age where there's going to be, you know, people who are looking for something outside of Christianity in order to fulfill that. And he has a lot of various ideas about what that might be, but like when you say he's for nihilism, I mean, again, it's like, he's describing like one potential system that he thinks is going to be, you know, useful across all well, not useful necessarily. I mean, for usefulness, he's talking about the Ubermensch and stuff. That's where he's writing about that. But like nihilism is a descriptive part of his moral systems. Okay, so that's kind of the nuance I want to make here, because he's not saying this is a good thing and that this is like what we should all be following. He's saying that this is going to be the result of it if we don't develop, you know, secular forms of morality, which other writers like later do, which again, it's like, this is a very complicated issue. There's like a lot of thought that's gone into this. So
what does this have to do with the New Testament either?
I'm also, it doesn't really have much to do. Like, okay, we can talk about the problems of secular morality all day, right? Absolutely. That doesn't mean the New Testament is suddenly the like greatest and best of all the morality systems out there, right?
Exactly. So, those are two totally different conversations to be had.
Well, when we started the conversation, if you'll remember, I said compared to the atheist position and other views that I've researched and studied, I believe that the New Testament has a more efficient moral system than what is set up. And I don't just say that based upon obviously just belief and faith. I base it on stats and what we've seen historically. Anytime that you've seen where non-believers were given power or political push, it always ended in entire civilizations being enslaved or killed, gun control where weapons were removed and people were left like sitting ducks in a barrel. So it never turned out good. Go ahead.
Okay.
I don't think that's the case, though.
You know, America was one of the largest slave-owning organizations like in the world for a long time, right?
Obviously.
And we were, it's not like we are less, like, it's not like we're more Christian now, right? Like there are more people like statistically who identify, not saying population wise, but per person, like not per person, sorry, I'm the opposite of per person. If you divide up the population of slave owning Americans and all Americans, there's like, we're more Christians than there are now. So like, I don't understand why you're saying it's the more, use the word efficient, which I think is interesting, but like, why on earth would we follow Christianity when it seems to lead to just as many problems as any other system? Like, I don't see how it's the best one.
And the New Testament,
and you make a good point.
Yeah,
the New Testament talks a lot about taking slaves in a way that it supports it. So
yeah, absolutely. It never, and there is not a single line in the Bible that says slavery is wrong, or that human ownership shouldn't happen.
They literally give you instructions on how to do it according to God's word.
No, there's not.
Sure, there is.
Absolutely not.
Even in the Old Testament, it says that if you kidnap people, then you'll get the capital punishment. You're not allowed to take a person as possession. The entire book of Exodus talks about a man who is sent by God to free over 400,000 slaves. And as far as
that doesn't mean that the institution of slavery is inherently bad.
Right.
That happened because it was the occupation of Jewish people.
Right.
And by the way, which didn't happen. Right. That narrative is false. But also, if you look at Leviticus, which is what Sydney is referencing, that outlines the actual rules that you have to follow if you're going to own a slave.
Right.
Which, again, it doesn't say don't own a slave. It says this is what you do when you own a slave.
These are the preferred ways in which you should own a slave, because you should, apparently.
Okay. So, you guys are making some good points, but as far as the New Testament goes, you guys would have to agree on this, that if you're doing unto others as you want it to be done unto yourself, and you're loving people and you're loving your neighbor and loving your enemy, you would not enslave them.
Unless the Bible gives you permission to enslave them, which it does.
Again, the epistles...
Slaves are not considered your neighbor in the Bible. That's not who they're talking about. They're talking about people who are your equals. They definitely had slaves that did not have the same rights and freedoms as everybody else. When they say love thy neighbor, they're talking about non-slaves. They're talking about people who are equal in your community. I do not think that counts for slaves.
Yes, in the epistles, Paul does not write, slave owners, free your slaves. He says, slaves, obey your masters. Okay? Jesus, like, if we're just saying, oh, do unto others as you should do unto yourself is the best form of morality, okay, that's one thing.
Right.
We could talk about that, but that's different from just saying the New Testament is consistent in that idea, because it's definitely not.
No, it is definitely not.
Well, let's take history, for example. You mentioned slavery in the United States of America. Now, if we really dwelled into this, how did people get freed from slavery anyway? It was the Christian community, the Christian citizens who actually fought. You can't find me one single atheist who actually fought against this.
You can't find a Christian that supported slavery?
Is that what you're trying to say?
You have Christians who actually stopped slavery.
We also have Christians who owned slaves. Like, you understand that it was like definitely okay by most Christians for a long time.
Yes. The American South, very Christian, very pro-slavery. Like, that as a whole, those things go hand in hand.
You do realize that there was a lot of Christians who were hung alongside blacks for actually...
You do realize there were Christians that were doing the hangings.
Yes.
You really are doing a chicken and egg thing here, okay? Here's the chicken. It's the Christian society, the Christian institutions that allowed it. We didn't even allow women to vote until the 1900s, okay? And that's also because of Christians, by the way. And it's because it was secular forms of morality, humanism, that was influencing this stuff more than anything, right? Humanism did not always exist in society, but more as humanism began to develop, as secular forms of justice began to become widespread across the world, that's when we actually saw the social changes. It's not because people got to their senses and realized, oh, well, Christianity actually says this. I'm sure some of them justified their anti-slavery practices through Christianity. In fact, I know that for a fact because I've actually read about this subject. But if you also read about this subject, you will see document after document after document that outlines church sermons, that outlines people's public opinions at the time, that said, yes, absolutely, the owning of people is absolutely okayed by Christianity, 100%. Right. And they had no doubts about that. At least some of them definitely were okay with this.
Especially depending on the type of person.
Again, it was okay. So historically, Christians are actually the ones who broke the slavery, and that's the reason why people are free today. But there wasn't any atheist.
No. It was the Christians that went to fucking Africa. Well, capitalists, but also Christians that went to fucking Africa and took those people over in the first place.
Right.
Okay. This was a mostly Christian society that were doing these things. Slavery was just as much of a legitimate practice in Christianity as anything else that the Bible prescribes, because there are no admonitions against slavery in the Bible. There is absolutely zero, none, no supporting scripture that says you shouldn't. You have to go the back way around and say, oh, well, the Bible says we should treat others like we should treat ourselves, right? And then you can get to that conclusion. But the actual institution of slavery is not prohibited in the Bible whatsoever.
In fact, it's actually supported in
It's not
many
prohibited
parts
by
of the Bible.
atheism either.
Brett, I'm an atheist, and I'm telling you, it is wrong to own slaves.
Brett did not watch the cold open.
Brett, I'm sorry, Brett. I don't know who you did on what you did on social media or whatever.
Right.
But like, if you're going to be an influencer, you have to know the literature, right? You have to know the facts from just like the common narrative that gets spouted off by apologists and stuff. Because like, this is absolutely ahistorical in your understanding, and also just I don't know. I'm kind of flabbergasted that you take this position on this.
I don't think there's a way that you can seriously take this position.
Ranting right over me.
Yes, because you're saying many wrong things.
Yes, Brett.
And I want to make sure that our audience knows that they're wrong.
You don't even have enough moral framework to listen to another person's side of view.
First of all, Brett, I'm talking to you right now on the show. We're live on the air. Okay, I can just hang up anytime I want.
Brett,
Second, go ahead, Sydney. See, I'm letting Sydney talk now because anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Brett, I have listened. I know who you are. I've listened to hours of your content. I've listened to so much of your content that I recognize what kind of conversation we are about to go into because I remember you and I've watched your content and I've listened to you ad nauseum. That's why I feel comfortable being like, ooh, this is not going to go well because I know exactly who you are and I've watched your content. I've watched your content since back in like 2013. I know exactly who you were when you called. I have listened to you so often that I don't even have to hear what you're about to say in order to know what you're about to say, right? So it's not like we don't want to listen to you. It's that we have listened to you and we know what a time crunch and a time suck this conversation is going to be, because I recognize that you're just going to disagree with us, even when you know for a fact you're misciting history, even when you know for a fact you're misquoting the Bible. You know this. You and I both know this about you, Brett. I remember. You and I both know that you just like to continue to say the opposite, even when you know for a fact that what you're saying is not true, because you like to hear yourself live on air and you like to get people riled up. But I remember you, Brett. So accuse me all you want of not letting you talk, but I have listened to you ad nauseum and I know how this conversation's going to go. And it's fine because you're going to leave here and you're still going to assume you won, and you're probably going to make a video about how you won and you know, atheists won't let you talk or something like that. And that's fine. I hope it's monetized. But it's like, I know how this conversation is going to go because I've listened to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's cowardly to mute people like that and just rant right over them. You have no moral framework and you've got no place to be able to tell us who's right and wrong.
Brett, I'll tell you what's cowardly. It's not doing your fucking homework and telling us that you think you know what the fuck you're talking about, because you are talking out of your ass right now. Seriously. Why don't you go fuck yourself, actually? Do unto others as you would do unto you. And I'm telling you to do unto yourself. Go fuck yourself. You understand? All right. We have conversations with all kinds of people on this show. You are not even the most divisive. You don't even come close.
No.
Okay. You're really not worth the effort. If you're going to seriously come here and pretend like you can lecture us about morality when you haven't even read the fucking books, when you don't even understand our position, and yet choose to frame it in your own narrative anyway. I mean,
and when you assume we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an influencer, at least be expected for people to know who you are. You're a bad influencer if you assume you're a stranger to everybody.
I don't know who the fuck you are, but if you're an influencer, I feel sad for the folks that listen to you because you don't know what the fuck you're talking. You just don't. You don't know what you're talking about. There are lots of people who have identified secular moral frameworks. And again, not all of them are created equal. There are definitely some that work better than others, but there is a conversation there that you are missing out on, because everything I've heard so far is the exact same shit I've heard from Christian apologists who have also never actually read anything by any serious moral philosopher that has thought about this stuff, and just think that Christianity is the only game in town. It's not even close. So anyway, ridiculous conversation, but it always gets ridiculous when we talk about slavery. I love that one. Oh, it's the Christian, it's the white man that ended slavery, Sydney.
I want to know which
You
soundbite
know?
he's going to use to prove that he destroyed me. I want to know which one that's going to be.
Don't you know it's white people that helped end the institution of slavery?
Don't you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's that same kind of argument. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Honestly, though, I'm going to say this, and I hope he's still listening.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit like I talked to a celebrity. I do. I feel a little bit like I talked to a celebrity.
I'm happy for you.
I feel a little bit like I talked to somebody who was like famous on reality TV in like 2001. But.
Yeah, maybe so. Anyway, that was ridiculous. Sorry if I was dominating the conversation there, Sadie. My moral frame. No, you don't understand. My moral framework doesn't allow for other people to talk on a call-in show.
Well, especially if they're women.
Especially if you're a woman.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Your opinion is definitely not on the same level as mine.
For sure not.
And so we got to like accommodate time accordingly, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that fucking conversation. Oh boy. Let's see. Do I have any other stuff to talk about right now? Let's talk about our top 5 patrons. Actually, it's about that time. And I think we should do that. We want to thank everybody that donates to the Talk Heathen Patreon. You guys are awesome and help support the show. So we're going to read our top 5 patrons. Actually, Sydney, do you want to read the top 5 patrons? Let's do it.
I would like to know from you or the audience what voice you would like me to read the top 5 patrons in.
Ooh. Do you have a good like Elmo impression?
I don't know if I can do Elmo. That's like the one I don't know if I can do.
Okay, how about like who's somebody soft like Mr. Rogers or somebody or Bob Ross?
The top 5 patrons. I'm proud of you. Let's see. Yeah, I'll read it like the way that Bob Ross would read it.
Okay.
The top 5 patrons, and they're really great patrons.
Well, you're almost too soft. Can you speak up just a little
the top 5 patrons, and they're happy little patrons, and we're proud of them because they're doing their best and they're trying really hard. For example, one of my favorite patrons, although I don't have a most favorite because everybody's equal, Dingleberry Jackson. It's great to have you. You're just a wonderful person. Oops, all singularity. We're so glad to have you here. You're loved by us all, and I hope you're having a great day. Devor Valjin. I hope I pronounced that right, but if I didn't, I hope you can forgive me because, we're just happy to have you here. Then we've got Helvetti. Sounds like a font. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. Left in the Leaves. I hope you enjoy it there in the leaves because we're here for you whenever you're ready to come back. We never left you. We've been here with you the whole time. And then honorable mention 6 Brian Zupke. Honorable mention 6 Brian Zupke. I don't know if that's your whole name or if I was supposed to read you as an honorable.
That's the honorable mention.
Yep. Really happy to have you here. You're really fantastic, and I hope you know that we're here for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely reading, Sydney. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to donate, you can do that at tiny.cc/patreon.th. And maybe if you get a top 5, you also get a lovely reading from Sydney. Should it be Sod Ross? Maybe? No, that doesn't really work. Sid Ross. I don't know how. Sid
Ross sounds like a Grammy winner.
Sid Ross does sound like Grammy. I kind of like Sod Ross now that I've said that.
I like that.
Yeah, Sod Ross is a new one that I'm going to take home. Okay. Let us continue. Oh man, again, we've got some real good ones here. But we will take this next one. I think Andrew from Florida. And oh man, okay. This I may regret taking this, but you're already on the line here, Andrew. This is coming from the call screener. Do you think that Jesus was the Martin Luther King Jr. of his time? Please elaborate on that, Andrew.
Yeah, according to historical Jesus scholarship, like from Yale and Harvard and these Ivy League institutions, Jesus, the historical Jesus was a progressive, nonviolent, resistant revolutionary. He wanted to liberate his people from an oppressive regime called Rome. And he did show a lot of grace and mercy to the marginalized of his society, like the prostitutes, prostitution back then wasn't willful. It was out of desperation. And Jesus showed them a lot of grace and humility. And Jesus was an extreme humanist when it came to his own interpretation of the Jewish law. So Jesus's flaws, like he didn't denounce slavery. I think his flaws were because Jesus was a product of his time. But if you compare him to the product of his time, he was pretty progressive.
I'm willing to grant some things here. I think, well, first of all, so the story with Jesus and the prostitute, it's Jesus and the adulteress, I think is the proper term there. That's actually not, that's a later addition to the Gospels, just FYI for people's understanding.
I
But
was talking about that. Sorry.
okay. Oh no, that's fine. If you're talking about like Mary Magdalene or whatever, I mean, like, look, so was Jesus a non-violent sort of revolutionary? I actually, for the most part, agree with that. Besides, like the weird verse, I think was it John? It's like, "I come not to bring peace, but the sword," which is like really weird. Or maybe that's in Mark. I need to update myself on that. But yeah, I think if you take the body of work that has come out of that, and you're trying to describe a historical Jesus, I think that's fair. I don't think you have to go so far to say that he's MLK, because there's a lot of like non-violent revolutionaries that were definitely fighting for like different things than what Jesus was, particularly Martin Luther King Jr. But yeah, if we want to just say, like, if we're trying to describe a historical Jesus and say that he was, if to use a modern label, progressive for his time, in a non-violent sense, I mean, I guess I'd be willing to meet you there. What do you think, Sydney?
Yeah, I think if we're just making a comparison of like peaceful people who made an impact, then yeah, like that's not where I thought that was going. So yeah,
that's not where I thought that was going.
That is
either.
not where I thought that was going.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll grant that. Yeah.
There you go, Andrew. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we can find some common ground. All the supernatural stuff, he was an ancient Jew, so he thought that a supernatural God would do it. I'm a Taoist myself, but I think atheists should really appreciate the historical Jesus and ignore the one that Paul, recreated, and ignore the one that modern day Christians recreated.
Well,
yeah.
And I'll say.
Oh, go ahead, Sid.
No, Dan, you can go.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, so I first of all, I appreciate you said something that most people don't say, which is actually fantastic, which is Jesus's interpretation of Judaism, which is a big thing, because a lot of Christians don't recognize that's what it is. Jesus's interpretation of Judaism is what Christianity is. Because Christians like to think of it as its own system. It's not. It's based off of Judaism, and it's specifically with the Gospels account of what Jesus's interpretation of Judaism and the epistles of Paul. And you also mentioned an interesting thing, that Paul's reconstruction of Jesus is not something that we should all take into account. And I also agree with you on that. Paul, as far as we know, had never actually met Jesus. So he's just saying whatever he thinks is right, honestly, a lot of times, and interpreting that, superimposing that onto Jesus. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Christians for the vast majority of history do take those epistles quite seriously. And so it's kind of hard to separate Christianity as we know it today as a separate thing from what maybe the historical Jesus actually was. This idea of a secular understanding of a historical account of Jesus is quite new in history, only started around really right before the 20th century, if I recall, right? We're talking about 1800s, really like actually sussing this out was sort of a newer academic phenomenon than what's historically been, an understanding of Jesus' account. So yeah, I think we're mostly in agreement here, Andrew.
Yeah. So atheists owe, the historical Jesus an apology for all those insults.
Well, hold on.
You got to give the man credit. I think you got to give the man credit.
Well, here's the thing, though, and I don't know about you, Dan, but I've always thought that if Jesus as a character, as a person, were looked at from the perspective of, say, fables, of these are lessons we're trying to learn from, the same way that Aesop's fables are, the same way that so many stories are supposed to teach a lesson, I think there's a lot of good that we can draw from the way that Jesus, not the overall Bible, but Jesus talked to people and spoke to people, and the things he said and the rules he said to follow, specifically Jesus. I don't want anybody to claim that I'm like pro the Bible, because I'm not. I think where most people disagree is whether or not he actually existed as a human being. I think some people think he really was on Earth and he existed. Some people don't. But the actual actions and words and teachings of Jesus aren't. I don't know a lot of atheists who are riled up about that part of the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a consensus among historical scholars that Jesus existed as a person. His personship is separate from that which is described in the epistles obviously, but also the gospel accounts are not eyewitness accounts of Jesus. So they're also, in a way, reconstructions of Jesus. The truth is, we don't really know a whole lot, but Andrew is right in the conclusion that scholars make, which is that Jesus was a likely non-violent revolutionary with a particular interpretation of Judaism. I mean, he's still a cult leader, Andrew.
Right.
I that's the thing. He's still a cult leader. I can't give him that, right?
And we're
It's
not
like,
going to apologize to him.
yeah, I'm not going to say, oh, well, we should be thankful for him. Because no, he said actually okay, but before I get too much into nuance, there's also a difference in what scholarship actually thinks.
I'll be thankful.
I get it. There's also a very much different account of what Jesus actually said versus his divinity as well. There's a lot of debate as to whether he actually said he was the Son of God, because that's not actually found in all the Gospels. Weirdly enough, you think it's there, it's not. It's really mostly in John. So it's like, yeah, okay, his divinity is also in question, whether he's actually the Son of God. But point is, I think if he was a religious leader and he had a different interpretation of Judaism, it still comes with the baggage of everything else, right? Like, I don't know, there's something to be said there about, like, oh, we should give credit to the guy that kind of sort of got it right, but also ended up, screwing us over in other ways too. It's hard for me to give credit to a cult leader again, but I guess he had some good points. Anyway, Andrew, that's a lot of thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Jesus denied when somebody like his own divinity. In Luke 10, he said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? There's only one good but God." So right there, like, you can just show Christians, look, he didn't think of himself as God.
No, I agree with you.
God's anointed, but
that's why there's a debate as to his divinity, and that's why you don't see a lot of that language until John. So yeah, we're in agreement there, Andrew. But we've said a lot here. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Mostly me.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, cool. All right.
Would you have any interest in calling in the future, maybe next week, to tell us a little bit about Taoism and your beliefs?
Sure.
Yeah, we'd
Cool.
love to hear back from you at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm a Taoist, open to just religion as a humanist construct. So
okay,
that's why I'm still pro-Christianity, just the positive elements. But
yeah, we'd love to have you call in next week or something like that to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I get you, Andrew. I get you. You want to make sure that we're giving credit where credit's due, right? Here's the thing. It's hard for us to do that because we have to give very, very, very specific and nuanced credit, okay, when those things are appropriate. And it is very hard to do that without people just taking a clip from us and saying, see, even Jesus, they think Jesus is all right. It is an uphill battle for us if we give any ounce of, credit, which is why it's like pulling teeth from us. Okay. We really don't like to say it all the time, but like we can give that within the appropriate context, which I think this conversation allows. It's just, it's not always easy to do that. But Andrew, we are going to go ahead and let you go because we do have some other folks that want to talk to us. But that was a good conversation. Sydney, what'd you think of that?
I thought it was great. Very peaceful.
Me too.
Yeah.
There is a after show Discord that you guys should check out before the end of the show. It's on the Fan Run Discord server, so take a look out for that. But we have some more folks. We got like 2 more callers. I want to see if we can get to both, or if not, at least one of them. And this next one is someone who's been on the line for a while now, so I want to get to them. This is Sam calling in from Canada. Sam is an ex-Muslim and wanted to talk to us about some of his experiences. Sam, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I've been listening to ACA shows for many years, and I've heard all types of topics discussed, but I don't know if I've really heard this one, which is, basically as a Muslim kid growing up from a non-Arabic speaking country, you will have Quran classes the same way that, Christians will have Sunday school, usually on a Saturday, either be at the mosque or you go to some kid's house, and you would have these classes where they teach you they teach you Arabic, but they don't actually teach you how to speak Arabic. So you learn the alphabet and how to sound things out and what it means when the letters are put together and with accents above and below them, but they never actually tell you what it means. And so the whole purpose of it is just to get you to read the Quran, because the whole goal of being a Muslim is to read the Quran. So once you actually read it, it doesn't matter if you understand what you're reading. So every week you kind of sound out different sections of it until you get to the end, and there's like a little bit of a celebration as a kid. But I always thought, well, I didn't register as a kid, but as an adult, I thought it's a bit sinister that I spent years learning essentially Arabic, but I can't speak Arabic, and neither can my parents, neither can my grandparents, and they had the same experience where they could sit there and read it, sound it out, but it didn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Interesting. I feel like Christianity in Hebrew does that too, where they'll teach you names or certain words, but they don't teach you enough to actually go back and read it in Hebrew and figure out if it's the same as what you've been told your whole life. Very interesting.
Yeah, I imagine I can't speak.
I can't speak to that, but I also have Jewish friends that have told me they had the same experience with Hebrew.
So the reason why you don't see that in Christianity is because Jesus likely spoke Aramaic, and there is no Aramaic Gospels, right? So the original Gospels are written in Koine Greek, and so later the Catholic Church famously, right, sort of adopts Latin as its kind of official language. But of course, Jesus wasn't speaking Latin either. That was just sort of the canon way to read things. So there's no like real origin language that most of us have to study. I mean, like if you do New Testament studies, they're going to talk about Greek, and then they're going to obviously talk about Hebrew as well. But like there isn't as much of an emphasis because, as you know, in Islam, the prophet spoke and wrote these things, or his followers wrote things in Arabic, and so that's like the official holy language, which is just not a Christian phenomenon, at least for most of us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get zero credit for reading the Quran in any other language. Like if you read it, if you're an English speaking person and you read it in English, you don't get any credit for that. It's only if you read it in Arabic, regardless of whether you understand it.
Which is funny because allegedly, the Prophet Muhammad can't write in Arabic either. Like he was like famously illiterate, right? So
yeah, I mean that's actually one of the proudest facts for a lot of Muslims is that that's part of the miracle.
So we got to do all the work, and he doesn't.
Do you think that's why so many people who are Muslim are okay with the idea that they can't necessarily, like, they're not fluent in Arabic because he wasn't either. So
yeah, possibly. I mean, personally, I think that like at best it's just negligence, but more likely it's that they don't want us to know what these words mean, because if we actually read them, then it's not things that people want to hear. It's kind of terrible stuff. And it wasn't until I read the Quran in English that I, really detached myself from the religion.
The irony, I think the intention is twofold. One, a lot of original texts in Islam were from oral traditions, right? And so obviously those oral traditions were Arabic. So in order to keep that cohesive, you have to keep it in the same language, because when you translate stuff, you lose meaning, right? So I think there's an idea of keeping purity there in some sense. But the irony is, if you don't actually speak Arabic, you don't retain the meaning because you don't understand the context either, right? Because you don't speak Arabic. So it's kind of a coin with two sides there. It doesn't really work out for anybody. But
yeah, exactly. As kids, we would read the verses together, and then we would have a teacher that would paraphrase what we read. So he would give us his version, but he wouldn't say this is what each word meant that you just read.
Interesting.
Feels a bit sinister to me.
Yeah,
that is really funny. Obviously, I wish we could talk more about. Go ahead, Sam.
Sorry. I was just saying, imagine if you sent your kid for 7 or 8 years to language classes, and at the end of it, they couldn't speak the language.
That was me in Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
Donde está la biblioteca?
Right.
And I only know that line as much as I do because of Community, which is a fun show. But I understand the frustration there. That sucks that you can't even speak the language, and the ones you do is the kind of language you don't even want to speak anyway. Which is
Exactly.
well, Sam, do you have kids? Do you plan on teaching if you had kids, would you teach your kids? Oh, I guess you can't even teach them because you don't even know the Arabic well enough to do that, huh?
No, exactly. And yeah, no, I don't have kids, but I do have a niece, and I do my best to make sure that she's not taught any of this stuff, or at least given given the other side of things.
yeah. Maybe not teach at all, but like with like a lot of context, right? I think that's probably the best way to do it.
100%. Yeah, agree.
Yeah, totally, Sam. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you to go because I want to get to at least one of the caller here before the end. But thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Sure.
props to Sam for waiting on the line for as long. He was like on for like an hour. We just had some other calls we want to get to, but that's what happens sometimes, folks. You always want to stay on because we still might get to you towards the end there. And we got another 5 minutes or so. So I want to get to another caller. Let's get to Ash, who's calling in from Illinois. Ash, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hi, how's it going?
Good. What do you want to talk to us about?
Well, I'm new to your channel. I got a shout out from the Atheist Experience. I was on their live channel there, and they shouted you guys out, so I figured I'd give you guys a listen.
Hell yeah.
But I wanted to talk about what you guys think about life after death. I was pretty much an atheist for all my life. My mom was Protestant, my dad's Jewish, and they gave me the opportunity to just look at all the religions, and I figured out I was not a fan of any of it. And I was pretty content with my beliefs up until my friend died. And after that, I was a little bit lost on what to believe because I don't believe in a heaven, I don't believe in a hell, I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in spirits. But a part of me still shouts out to the air like as if she's there, and I want to believe she's there. And, you know, there's a part of me feeling like energy, like in my belief, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy runs through us, runs in the neurons on our brain. Maybe some delusional thought of me believes a part of her is there somewhere in this world, you know, whether she's recycled into it or not. And I don't know, what's the atheist belief on it? Like, have you guys run into this situation before?
Dan, do you mind if I answer?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you my thoughts personally. I cannot speak for all atheists, and they're going to sound, at first, they're going to sound sad, but stick with me. I like these thoughts, and here's why. So I personally do not believe that there is any life after death. I think that it is lights out. I think that it is over, flipping a switch. However, I'm actually a big fan of that idea, and let me explain. I never understood true nothingness, like true blackness, true peace, until after I'd once been put under anesthesia. Have you ever been put under anesthesia before?
Oh yeah, it's weird. You don't even dream. You just
Exactly. You're just lights out. They're counting down from whatever number they said. Like in my experience, it was 100. I said 99, and then I woke up 3.5 hours later. So a lot of people think that when atheists say there's nothing after death, they go, "Oh, so you think it's just a black void?" No, I don't even think that. "Oh, so you think you're just wandering around for nothingness?" A lot of people simply cannot process the idea of nothing because human beings have never once experienced nothing in our lifetime unless you've been put under like that. And then you're like, "Oh, I get it. I didn't feel anything. I wasn't lonely. It wasn't sad. I didn't have any reflective thoughts whatsoever." Now, that being said, I think that memories and I think the things those people leave behind can still bring us peace and bring us joy and bring us the exact energy they would want were they still alive. I do believe that you feel your friend, you still maybe hear her, you still maybe see things that remind you of her. And I do think that those things should give those of us who are alive peace. For example, my dad died a week after my first birthday. So I never really knew him very well. But he was an artist and he left art behind and he was a writer and he left writing behind, and there's pictures and people are still here to tell me exactly what I do that's just like him. Apparently there's a pose I do when I'm thinking that's just like him. And so while I do not think that he is here with us anymore, and I don't think that I'm going to heaven and I'm going to see him again, I still get immense peace by being told all the things that I do that are like him, all the interests I have that he was interested in, and there's no way I would have known that. It's not like I'm just trying to copy and be like him. And so while I don't think your friend, in my personal opinion, I don't speak for all atheists, while I don't think your friend is there anymore to what you know her to have been, I do think that you should embrace those feelings and those thoughts and those opportunities to still maybe talk to her, or if it makes you feel better to surmise what she might have thought about certain things that she didn't get to live to see. And I do think that your friend would want you to find peace in those things and would want you to know that you can still do those things even if she's not here with us, if that makes sense.
That's very well said. I'm holding back tears right now. That's very well said. I guess I got to practice that because it was hard for me because that's originally what I believed is when you're out, you're out. There's nothing, and then after that, it was in my head that it was just like I hope that there is something. Like I wanted there to be hope.
Right.
I hoped for hope, but it's just it's hard to replace that. But like you said, having them live on through memory and having her memory live on through my heart, that's where I need to be at because like I said, I was so confused because I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in spirits, but
but also
in
think
memory,
of it this
that's
way.
where her presence is at.
You can also think of it this way. She's also not suffering. She's also not somewhere hurting. She's also not lost and alone. It is simply she ceases to be outside of what she left behind for you. She's still here through her thoughts, her memories, her pictures, her videos. If she did, crafts, things like that, she's still here on Earth, but she's not anywhere existing in a less than favorable way that a lot of religions want you to believe.
Yeah. And I think that's the pull too with a lot of religions that I was, looking at, especially with not necessarily religion, but monism or monism is, the belief of how our energy or consciousness or something like that still continues to exist on this planet in a way. And I was almost leaning towards that, but I'm still debated with, I don't believe in phenomenon. I address everything with reason and logic, and it only goes so far before there are more questions than answers,
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if I have
talking to me.
Of course, Ash.
Of course.
Of course. I don't know if that I have much more to say that would add on to what Sydney, I think, surmised wonderfully. Just that, as those of us who are deconstructed Christians, this is often a belief that either doesn't get touched in some ways or is just kind of redone in a way that makes us feel the best. And while it's important to be honest with ourselves about what we think is true about reality and what's not true about reality, I also think it's okay to believe that if this person's life is meaningful to you in such a way that there's a belief that works for you better, that it is okay. Not everything has to be reductivist or reductionist in some sort of way. While there's a lot of debate about the afterlife and how people are and whether physicalism or materialism is all there is, or etc. This is what makes us human on some level. Like, we're losing that every day with AI, but if we're going to have some semblance of like human identity, it is the idea that there is some sort of, dare I say, divine spark within us that makes us different from the rocks and the plants and everything else. And that person's
why is it we are the way we are?
Yeah, exactly. So I say this is one of those moments where I'm okay with just saying, live your truth, which isn't something I say about everything, but this is one of those things. Anyway, Ash, was there anything else you wanted to talk to us about before we let you go?
No, not for the moment, but I think I'll definitely become a subscriber, and I'll call if I have any more things to think about.
Yeah.
Please do.
Thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Of course. You too. And we're getting towards the tail end of the show here. That was a great call to end this on.
I like to think that if I were to pass, that people who knew me, especially people like you, Dan, I feel like you would know what I thought was bullshit and what I'd enjoy from here on out. I feel like you'd be able to look at something and say, "Oh my goodness, Sydney would hate this," or Sydney would love this," or something like that.
Yeah, I could pontificate for fucking hours about this shit. I don't know. We don't have time to go into my full thoughts, but yeah, I would definitely say, crystal energies. Sydney would love that. That's her favorite thing in the world. She loves talking about. She loves talking about that stuff. She
Brett,
loves
my favorite.
black licorice.
I love black licorice.
Probably.
Devout Christian. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll have an accurate picture of you for sure. But anyway, jokes aside, real quick, we have a super chat from Blind Limey, who's a member for 6 months, gave $5 that said, Maverick encapsulated how we can still be influenced by those we've lost. Quote, talk to me, Goose, which that's a Top Gun reference, I'm pretty sure. Thank you, Blind Limey, for Top Gun. I've never actually seen the original Top Gun.
So I haven't either.
I know the characters' names, and that's why I recognize that. I didn't see the new one either. But I should talk about that. Oh, we have a few more too that I need to read out. We actually have
2 more.
Yeah, we have 2 more. We got one from Miranda Rensberger, who is a member for 1 month, gave $5 and said, Sydney's Bob Ross is such a relief after that call. That's true. I really liked your Bob Ross.
Thanks. I feel like we all just needed a moment to be thankful and peaceful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think it says there might be another one. Am I missing?
I see one right here. Do you want me to read it?
Read the other one. Yes, please.
So McBeard gave $5. Thank you so much, McBeard. And they said, I think Howard was trying to make a point that each generation contains the subsequent generation as an ill-conceived attempt to disprove evolution.
Yes.
I do think I took his comment a little literally when he was talking about eggs. I was thinking he was asking if like his grandma's eggs like ended up in his sister or something like that. But it took a little bit, but I think we got there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was from a way earlier. We should have read that earlier. That's my bad. But yeah, no, there is like generative AI, like proves that this is wrong. Like you try to make new generations of AI based on the old one, and they're not exactly the same when you do these like training methods. I don't know if that happens in as relatively simple systems compared to like how fucking DNA works. Like you don't think that there's going to be iterations between each generation as far as like what genes that change versus don't. I guess some people have an idea that your exact DNA is just is passed on every time.
I really think that men should take a class on women's reproductive systems. I really think it would be a good thing. The thoughts and opinions I've heard on how ovaries work concern me greatly. And I just think it's a good thing to read up on, Christian or not.
He did start with the eggs thing, and that threw us off.
It did.
I think.
It did.
But anyway, man, it's been a minute since I've hosted Talk Heathen. I've really enjoyed today's show. Today was really, really good. You should come to the after show on the Discord, CC/ACD Discord, if you want to talk to some folks on there. And so
if you want to hear my back history with Brett,
I said I wasn't gonna have time. It's been a minute. I'm gonna come on for just a little bit. I do have some stuff I gotta do today, but I'll be on there too. Sydney will be on there, so it's not recorded for show purposes or anything. So feel free to just jump on, just hang out with us for a little bit, because I think we'll both be there. The prompt for this week is, why are people really leaving the church? And so reply in the comments and tune in at the beginning of next week's episode to hear the top 3 answers on that.
Cindy, and please be serious.
Only serious inquiries only. Please. No jokes allowed. Just kidding. No, I don't want to like I think there's good criticism there.
That was a great critique.
It's a good critique. I think
it was.
I don't want to dismiss it.
No, not at all.
But no, only serious.
But also I'm gonna make jokes because that's how I feel.
Yeah, we're just not serious people.
You know me. I am a very serious person.
Oh, you're the most serious person.
That's why I got fired from the Second City. Just kidding. I never got fired. I still work there. I'm on their faculty page, but it's a terrible picture. Please don't look at it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, Cindy, you want to do some love rings?
Yes.
Do you want to do them this time? Do you know how to incant?
I don't know how to do them.
So you start by stomping your feet.
Okay.
And then clap your hands a little bit. Then you say ooga chaga. No, just kidding. You just do a little bit of this motion right here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Pew! love rings. Love rings going out to everybody watching at home, haters and lovers. You're all welcome here, baby.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it. And thank you to the folks that called in today as well. Calling in is a thing to do, that it gives us the content. So, if you want to see different kinds of calls, come and call in and change the show that you want to see. But we had some really good ones today. So thank you to everybody being here and folks in the live chat. Thank you guys too.
And thanks to Yasmin Meadowflower, member for 2 years, who just donated £2 literally as we speak. And they said, God is dead and I am not into necrophilia. Sunshine.
That's a quote.
I'm glad you're not into necrophilia.
I'm glad you're not into necrophilia too. Okay, I'm gonna cease the love rings. Cast a cease and desist.
I was just about to
There we
say
go. Okay, got it. All right, cool. Thank you, crew, for assistance in the love ring ritual. And last but not least, Sydney, we should close this out by saying, if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live, Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.